Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Shilagh Mirgain, a health and sports psychologist here at the University of Wisconsin, and I am between you and the ice cream social that's going to happen in 15 minutes. The University of Wisconsin is one of the pioneers in research around mindfulness and other contemplative practices and the impact that they have in terms of our own personal well-being and the well-being of our workplaces. I've been privileged to be part of some work between the Wisconsin School of Business and the UW Center for Investigating Healthy Minds, or now it's called the Center for Healthy Minds, looking at meditation, mindfulness, ways of mental training and how they influence well-being in the workplace, productivity, performance, overall contentment. I've also recently been part of research looking at how mindfulness practices can influence creativity and innovation in graduate students in engineering. And also been part of work looking at these practices in lowering pain levels and decreasing use of pain medications like opioids. So when we think about the application of these mindfulness and these practices to our own workplaces, I want you to think about, have you been in workplaces where there wasn't much well-being, where there was a lot of stress, where people were overwhelmed, burned out, negative? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, we've probably all been there. And we can think about how that can turn into a vicious cycle, that we might dread going to work. We might just sloth through the day. We don't bring our best selves, and it can turn into kind of more doom and gloom to the point that we leave. Probably in the reverse, many of us have been in those workplaces where there was something really innovative happening. There was synergy. There was excitement, enthusiasm. Ideas started to sprout forth from conversations. We felt like we were bringing our best selves there and enjoyed going to work. People have had experience with that. Okay, so as we go into this less than 15 minutes that I have today, I want to just really have a charge that it starts with us, and in particular, how we're managing ourselves. We do live in complex times, right? In workplaces where more is being asked of us than we often feel like we have able to offer. And we're going to talk about 3 different areas of mindfulness, or what I like to think of as mindful leadership, that we're always leading, even if we're not in a leadership role. We have impact with everyone that we encounter. And we want to think about, what kind of legacy am I leaving? What kind of ripple am I having? What kind of an impact am I having in the workplace? Because the reality is we spend most of our time at work, right, in the US? So there's more we can do to influence the quality of our workday and our work environment than sometimes we take responsibility for. So we're going to talk about kind of these 3 qualities of know yourself, master yourself, and share yourself. So the first one of self-awareness, of knowing ourselves. We can often go through the day on autopilot. The alarm goes off, we hit snooze, we grab our cup of coffee, we drive to work, we sit down and we go through our work day and arrive home maybe a little irritable and fatigued and kind of interact with our family, maybe checking our phone for the work emails and fall asleep exhausted. So part of mindful awareness helps us break out of that autopilot to have much more intentionality around how we're showing up and how we're self-managing. So I want you to think about, what are those things that set you off in that autopilot? What are some of those distractions, stressors, those people who get to you that might trip your trigger and cause you to be in that kind of reactivity, or just going through the motions, or maybe more irritable or frustrated or overwhelmed? And I'm a sports psychologist. I work a lot with the Badger athletes. Yay, they're going to have a great upcoming season. We're really excited about it. And we're actually teaching some of these practices to a lot of our athletes, including our football team. There was a recent New York Times article talking about, for every athlete, they should be spending 15 minutes a day meditating. I think actually we could all benefit from 15 minutes of just some silent kind of practice, whether it's meditation or centering prayer or just breathing. Because research shows that our performance, health, and happiness, there's an inverse relation to high levels of stress and performance. That when there's too much stress, our performance goes down. We experience too much anxiety. A little bit of stress is good, right? It helps us rise to the occasion. It helps us really show up. in a really profound, effective way. But oftentimes in the US, we have way too much stress. We're kind of walking around as stress bombs. Probably all of us have been there where people say, you're stressed. You come home from work and your partner says, you're stressed. And you say, no, I'm not. No, I'm not stressed at all. And our partner says, yeah, you're stressed. So we don't necessarily have awareness of when we get stressed. And we find that stress in and of itself isn't problematic, but it's staying stressed. That's so destructive to our health, to our happiness, to our relationships, to our workplaces, and our overall well-being. So here are some of the signs and symptoms of stress. It's going to impact us cognitively, physically, emotionally, behaviorally. And you can think about for yourself, what is my stress signature? When I'm getting stressed and staying stressed, how does that show up? It's all going to look different for each of us. So once again, it's not stress in and of itself that's so problematic, because we're not going to avoid stress. But how do we become more stress resilient or stress hardy? So there are a lot of different techniques, but I just want to teach us really simple practice that I teach all my athletes. I teach a lot of executives this kind of practice, and just a lot of high schoolers this practice before exams, and a lot of people in the workplace. And that is simply working on our breathing. When we're stressed, what happens is our breath gets really shallow in our chest. This is called stress breathing or survival breathing. One of the best things we can do to fuel our best performance, to calm and regulate and center, is to practice slower, deeper abdominal breathing. Aaron Rodgers recently, I think he was working with a sports psychologist, because they did an interview with him, and he talked about using the breath to center himself before different plays. And what he said is he used the breath to quiet and calm and get into a still point. And then he thought about, what do I want to do next? What's the outcome? What's the play? And he would visualize it and then go out and perform. In the same way we can do this. So what I'd like us to just notice, let's just do an experiential here. Just notice your breath. You might even put a hand on your stomach, hand on your chest, or just notice where in your body are you breathing. Probably many of you are noticing I'm breathing up in my chest. Some folks here notice, okay, it's kind of shallow. Okay, it's up here, my shoulders might be moving. So if we're doing this, we're fueling the stress in our system. It's called, again, stress breathing or survival breathing. So what I'd like you to do is just practice slower, deeper abdominal breathing, kind of like we're Aaron Rodgers here before a big play. And we're breathing slower and lower. As we breathe in, the stomach expands with air. And as you breathe out, the stomach contracts. So it's kind of like we're filling up a balloon with air as we breathe in. And as we breathe out, the balloon is deflating. And what I have my athletes do, or people in corporations or in the workplaces, just do this 10 times. And as you're just breathing slower and lower, how many of you are noticing tension is lowering? You might be paying attention to me more, and you might feel a little more calm and centered. And what we find when we're breathing slower and lower, the other part of our central nervous system is turning on that helps us get back into that place of balance, where our most productive creative work emerges from that place. Because we don't do our best work. We're not the best parent. We're not the best spouse. We're not the best employee when we're stressed. When we're calm and centered, that's our place of personal power. So use this, the breath. And you can think about the power of the pause. You know, anytime, I mean, if you're waiting for anything, try the breathing. If you're brushing your teeth, try the breathing. Before sending an email, maybe you shouldn't be sending. Take some breaths, right? You know, at bedtime, it can help. Email apnea, they're talking about when we checking our email, we're holding our breath. That's not good for our physiology or our health. Practice the slower, blower breathing. It's a lot of different ways when we're stuck in rush hour traffic, when we sit down at our desk. So the second area is really working on mastering ourselves. And we find that so much is coming at us in a day that we are overwhelmed and we're often in survival mode. How many people here, you like dread checking your email? This happened to me before, and I was like, 57 emails, how did that happen? I just shut down the Outlook, because I can't deal with it. So all this stuff is coming at us, and we're just like juggling and we're dropping balls, and we kind of forget what's important. So it can be things outside of ourselves, but what I'm also finding, and many of us can relate to it, is that we're kind of our worst culprit. We're the ones who are like, oh, let me check social media now, or oh, we got to send that text, or oh, maybe I'll walk to the break room and see if there are donuts. So we're like self-interrupting ourselves, right? It's not necessarily all that's coming at us, but it can be, the stuff we're ruminating about, the stuff we're upset about, the ways that we distract ourselves. There was a study in the journal Science that found they were tracking people throughout a day with smartphones, and they would ping them and say, what are you doing? What are you focused on in your mind? And how happy are you? And they found that the average adult, 47% of the time, we're not paying attention. The average adult, 47% of the time our mind is wandering. So I like to say half of you aren't listening to me right now. You're thinking about the ice cream social. Okay, so why is that problematic? The same study found that when our mind is wandering, we reported being significantly less happy. And this is troublesome because we know our best performance comes when we're in the moment. And I think for kids in particular, right, how do they learn? Is by paying attention. We're finding kids are really distracted these days. There was a study out of Google, and I'm not quite sure how they measured it, but it's kind of fun to share. And they talked about how our attention is declining, in part because of all our technology. In the year 2000, we found that our attention span was around 12 seconds. But in 2015, it was down to 8 seconds. Well, somehow they measured the goldfish, and the goldfish has us beat at 9 seconds. So, I always say we can do better than the goldfish. So when we think about, what does hook us? What hooks us? It could be the problem of the day, or the annoying coworker, or the thought of the ice cream social, that's hooking us. And how do we really train our mind? How many people here go to the gym and you're physically training? Yeah. We can equally train our mind through simple practices. And Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's one of the researchers of mindfulness meditation, says really mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way on purpose. And he says as if our life depends on it. And it kind of does, right? We miss moments when we're not paying attention. So we can have a particular practice of training our mind in focus and attention. And research being done here at the Center for Healthy Minds finds that simply doing meditation practices like a mindful focus practice, we're just going to do a 1-minute practice to show you, actually strengthens pathways in the brain associated with attention. There's this neuroplasticity of the brain that our brain can change based on our experiences, and we can take more responsibility for the shaping of our brain. So simply doing a simple practice like taking your brain to the gym of focus will strengthen those pathways, because if we train in focus, we can have it readily available when we need it. So I'd like us just for a minute to just focus on sound here in the room. When our mind wanders, we can bring it right back. When our mind wanders, just bring it right back to sound. So let's just drop in and just notice sound in the room. When your mind wanders, you can bring it right back. When your mind wanders, you can bring it right back. Okay, so just 1 minute of training in focus on sound. So think about how are you managing distractions in your workday, or even how do you, how much you incorporate some more mindful focus in your workday. Be more intentional around how you show up for your day, identifying what's important versus urgent to focus on, paying attention to your body and breath, pausing before that email, thinking about outcome and intention in meetings, noticing without judgment, and self-reflecting at the end of your day. Okay, and lastly, we can share ourselves, and we know healthy workplaces have positivity. that there's a way that there are more positive emotions than negative. And I think about a candle, and that a candle can light 1,000 other candles without any expense to its own length of its own life. In the same way, we can be that light for others. One of the ways we can do that is through gratitude, expressing gratitude personally or in the workplace. It makes us happier, significantly happier, up to 9% happier after 6 months of just reflecting on 3 good things that have happened. Great thing to incorporate into a meeting or to share with somebody. Expressing kindness or generosity. Generosity is one of the best things we can do for our own happiness. If we're down in the dumps, do one small act of kindness towards somebody. Okay, that really can create that ripple of positivity in a workplace. A really fun compassion practice, I call it kind of the secret Jedi mind trick, is you walk around your workplace and you just see somebody and you just wish them well, silently. You can do it out loud, but it's kind of fun to do silently. Extending that wish that they're happy, well, peaceful, free of suffering. It can be a great thing with your boss. If your boss is in a bad mood, just send them the wish of happiness. You'll notice it'll change the tone or the vibe there. So think about that. And as we wrap up, I was very privileged to be on the Today Show a couple years ago through the School of Business curriculum for Cultivating Wellbeing curriculum. That's a partnership with the Center for Healthy Minds. And I want to leave you with a practice that I talked about on the Today Show, which is the 5-3-1 Wellbeing practice. Try it out, share it with your coworkers, and do it for 30 days and see if it impacts your health, happiness, well-being in the workplace, and personal well-being. So first, mindfully meditate for 5 minutes a day, identify 3 good things in the evening, and extend at least 1 act of kindness each day. 5-3-1, pretty simple, won't take much time. It might be one of the best things that you do for yourself in the next month. I mentioned the Cultivating Wellbeing curriculum. That's partnership again, the Wisconsin School of Business and the Center for Healthy Minds. We do have some free guided meditations up there that I created. So you said, I don't know how to start with the 5 minutes of meditation, just go to this website. I have a body scan, a mindful focus practice. So feel free to use that as just a tool. You could even share it with coworkers. The Center for Healthy Minds, they have a website. They have a lot of social media. Yay, they're using social media well. So once again, check them out. And then I have a professional Facebook page where I post a lot of different articles about these kinds of topics. So feel free to follow that, Dr. Shilagh Mirgain. And I will be around after for questions because I think we're at time. Thanks so much, everyone.